Hi, and welcome back to Rolling Hills Soul Care Podcast. My name's Jazzy. I'm here with Chuck. Hi, Chuck.
Hey, Jazzy.
What's new?
What's new? I'm on a break today from grandkid duty. We watch two of our grandkids 3 days a week, and that's why we're able to get together today.
That's why we're here hanging out.
We're here hanging out because
doing this great
I
stuff.
needed to hang out with somebody other than a 3-year-old.
Exactly.
But I don't know. There are times where
3-year-old, I don't know if you can really elevate me above the level of 3-year-old, Chuck. Let's be real about that. Okay, you are going to read for us a blog today about trusting God. Is that correct?
that's the one. Yeah, it's titled Demonstrating Our Trust in God.
I can't wait.
I titled it that because I write this. The question I hear most frequently from God is, do you trust me? The fact that he has to ask me that question so often gives you some insight into my faith journey. I tell God that I trust him, and then I find myself in circumstances I don't like very much, and my thoughts and actions don't reflect much trust. Sometimes God asks us to trust him in the midst of big circumstances. For some of you, that might be cancer, or some other health crisis, or a family crisis, or the loss of a loved one, or a job, or any number of things that tend to knock us off our feet. But I find God most often asks us to trust him with the little day-to-day things. In my last blog, I wrote about the significance of the sacrifice of time as an important part of our worship experience. Spending time together is an important part of any relationship, and God is asking us, do you trust me with your time? I love the way Sarah Young put it in her book, Jesus Calling, in which she writes as if Jesus is talking directly to us. And the quote is, demonstrate your trust in me by sitting quietly in my presence. Put aside all that is waiting to be done and refuse to worry about anything. This sacred time together strengthens you and prepares you to face whatever the day will bring. By waiting with me before you begin the day's activities, you proclaim the reality of my living presence. That's the end quote. Sitting quietly with God is a way to proclaim the reality of his living presence. By stopping other activity and focusing instead on him, we are proclaiming, mostly to ourselves, that we trust the Lord to redeem that time by equipping and preparing us for whatever he has in store for us that day. By handing our cares over to him and refusing to allow worry to derail us, we are trusting God to either take care of the problem or fully equip us to handle it. When I reflected on Sarah Young's words, God brought to mind a lesson I'd learned at work many years ago that relates to this principle. It was a particularly busy time for me. I found myself working long days and often skipping lunch so I could remain at my desk to get more work done. At the same time, the company I worked for was encouraging us to get out and walk at least 7,000 steps a day as part of their wellness program. I remember thinking, I don't have time to go for a walk. I've got to get all this work done. But I reluctantly went on a walk one day. And as I walked, I silently talked with God about the work sitting on my desk or other situations on my mind. What I quickly discovered was that these 30-minute lunchtime walks became absolutely critical to my ability to get more done. During those walks, God would help me process things. I could talk them out with him, and he gave me new insights that enabled me to go back to my desk with focus, clarity, and energy that I didn't have before. And I also learned that walking helped me to lose some weight in the process. But this blog is not about walking for Jesus. It's about trusting him enough to spend time with him even when we don't think we have the time to do so. He has a wonderful way of multiplying things, like when he fed more than 5,000 people with 2 fish and 5 loaves, or changing things, such as turning water into wine, and solving big problems, like raising a faithful man's daughter from death. He is trustworthy. Let's sit down with him and let him prove it to us each day. And I closed with Proverbs 3:5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding.
Thank you so much, Chuck. If I may, this is one of the blogs that especially spoke to me in a beautifully convicting manner, I guess. We've talked before about being kind of introverted and leaning that way. And I'm one of those people as well. And when I hear the question, God saying, "Do you trust me?" Of course I can pay all the lip service to that. Like, of course I trust you, God. There's this. I know you'll work all things out for good. Da 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 da. Woohoo! I can say that, no problem. But the idea of quieting the voice in my head and sitting quietly in order to demonstrate trust and, as you said, to proclaim the reality of God's presence. That one's a tough one, because I feel like if I sit quietly, I'm very likely to start listening to myself and the things that myself has to say. And, oh, great, I took this time to figure things out. And I'll forget to acknowledge that that's God's presence as well. And not as well. That's, God's presence. I will forget to make that. And I mean, I love your sentence that sitting quietly with God is a way to proclaim the reality of his presence. And that in itself is demonstrating trust in a way that I'd not thought of before.
Well, you use the word convicting, and my blogs are written primarily to me. And it's convicting for me because as I pondered, Jesus Calling it's a devotional book. I happen to like it. It's one. I don't just read that as a part of, but it's just a part of my morning devotional time. And I don't want to just read it again to check it off the list. So if you read anything too fast, it doesn't give it time to set in, and you start looking at words. And,
right.
And I was convicted of, am I really am I willing to let God redeem this time that some might say, and I would be included in that, you've got things to do and you're sitting here
being unproductive.
Yes. And my trust in him is that I'm being the most productive I can be at this point. I'm being equipped for my day, and I'm going to trust him with that, and that he will redeem that. And so those words were picked on purpose with that intentionality to remind me, and if they remind you and other listeners as well, then they've served their point that it's easy to say, I trust you, Lord. But then he says, okay, well then do this.
Prove it.
Yeah. And he's not doing that in a I gotcha way. But those are the things that cause me to reflect on, well, do I really trust him? Right.
And that's, you said he's not saying that in a gotcha manner. But the knowledge that God has a purpose for these things, especially the verse that you quoted that, lean not on your own understanding. We don't always understand the things we've been told to do or asked to do. And if we trust God, then we're trusting that he will reveal that. And like you said, redeem whatever we think we had a better plan for.
There have been so many times in my life that I didn't fully understand why he was asking me to do something. And he doesn't promise to explain it. Sometimes he doesn't explain it at all.
Yeah, we don't always get that clarity.
But other times, the explanation comes as you follow what he's asked you to do. And so he's asking you to trust me enough to take these steps, and I'm going to reveal it to you. Other times, it's very clear that he's asking us to do something that it's like, I don't fully get this, Lord. And I know that there are people who are going through challenges in their life that it's common. Why, Lord? Why this? And sometimes he doesn't answer those things. But the ability to stay faithful and trust him that he will redeem even that, and that he's still with us in this, and it's not some type of weird punishment. So it's just again, it kind of went. Sometimes I will reflect, and we had talked about in our previous blog, time itself is, but taking that time to worship, to praise, to be cognizant of Him, but then just simply taking time, sitting. is
sitting still, you say?
In the Western world, sitting still isn't something that is easily done or looked upon usually with, oh yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I just gritted my teeth a little.
and yet sometimes, most often, that is the most powerful thing one can do, is to wait on God. Because if He's not walking in it with us, then whatever we choose to do,
that is a really good point,
is not going to be fruitful.
And we're leaning on our own understanding.
Correct.
All right, well, that is something I will be working on every day a little bit. So I sit for 5 seconds first, and then the next day 10, and then 15, and just keep working up. Is that where I get?
There you go, Jazzy. I know you can do it.
I got goals. Okay, well, if you want to listen to more of these podcasts, you can subscribe to this feed where you will find episodes along with Sunday teachings. It's the RH Church podcast. You can also find Chuck's other blog posts at rollinghills.org/worship, or the RH Worship Instagram feed also has links to that. Chuck, thank you so much for joining me today. I mean, I sound like I was joking around and making fun of it, but I'm not. I'm making fun of myself and appreciating your words.
I know. Thank you for giving me, even though I love Ben and Claire, it's nice to talk to an adult
to
here.
A 4-year-old instead of a 3-year-old.
There you go.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.